Pouring rain soaked my cheap dress shoes at the city bus stop. But the real chill came from my buzzing phone. My screen flashed a photo of my sister posing against a brand new, custom Bentley. Today was my college graduation. I was the valedictorian. She had merely survived a breakup. To understand the absolute betrayal of my college graduation day, you first have to understand the deeply flawed architecture of the Sterling family. We grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, in a sprawling, six-bedroom colonial that looked like it belonged on the cover of Architectural Digest. My father, Richard Sterling, was a ruthless commercial real estate developer who viewed every human interaction as a negotiation. My mother, Beatrice, was a former pageant queen turned relentless socialite who treated motherhood not as a nurturing role, but as a competitive sport. And in that sport, my older sister Savannah was her MVP. Savannah was 2 years older than me, and from the moment she could walk, she was the undisputed golden child. She had our mother's striking, camera-ready features and our father's terrifying ability to manipulate a room. She was charismatic, loud, and chronically irresponsible. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one, the reader, the observer, the one who brought home straight A's only to be met with a distracted nod from my father before he turned back to whatever crisis Savannah had manufactured that day. The disparity in how we were treated wasn't subtle. It was a blaring siren. When Savannah turned 16, my parents threw her a lavish, catered party at the country club and surprised her with a brand new Range Rover, wrapped in a massive red bow. When I turned 16, they were exhausted from dealing with Savannah's recent suspension for throwing a party in our basement, so my mother handed me a $100 bill and told me to order sushi. The rationale for this blatant favoritism was always framed as a bizarre, twisted life lesson. "You're the strong one, Capri," my mother would sigh, sipping her Pinot Grigio while staring at her phone. "Savannah is delicate. She feels things too deeply. She needs us more." My father's excuse was even worse. "You're capable, kid. You don't need a crutch. If I give you everything, you'll end up soft. I'm building your character." Building my character apparently meant cutting me off financially the moment I received a full tuition academic scholarship to Columbia University. While I was taking out small loans to cover my cramped apartment in Washington Heights and working weekend shifts as a barista at a local coffee shop to afford groceries, Savannah was finding herself. Finding herself consisted of dropping out of NYU after one semester, moving to a luxury condo in Miami that my father paid for, and launching a doomed career as a lifestyle influencer. She was constantly flying to Tulum, Dubai, and Ibiza on my father's Amex Black Card. When I tentatively asked my father for a $500 loan to help pay for my textbooks during sophomore year, he subjected me to a 40-minute lecture on fiscal responsibility and the dangers of entitlement. I swallowed the hurt, just as I always did. I buried myself in my studies. I double-majored in economics and political science. I became the president of the Debate Society. I interned at a top consulting firm in Manhattan. I was determined to succeed so massively that they would have no choice but to finally see me, to finally be proud of me. And for a brief, fleeting moment, I thought it was actually going to happen. In March of my senior year, I was notified that I had been selected as the valedictorian of my graduating class. When I called my parents to tell them the news, the reaction was surprisingly positive. "Valedictorian? Of Columbia?" my father had said, his voice actually registering an ounce of respect. "Well, that's quite the resume booster, Capri. Your mother and I will absolutely be there. We'll make a whole weekend out of it. We'll book a suite at the plaza, get the driver to bring you down, and take you to Le Bernardin for a celebratory dinner afterward." For 2 months, I held on to that promise like a lifeline. It wasn't about the fancy dinner or the luxury hotel. It was about the fact that, for one day in my entire 22 years of existence, the spotlight would be on me. Savannah was currently going through a messy, highly dramatic breakup with a DJ named Brody. But even that seemed to be taking a back seat to my achievement. But I should have known better. I should have known that in the Sterling family, the universe was only allowed to orbit one sun, 3 days before my graduation, Savannah showed up at our parents' house in Greenwich, unannounced, hysterical, and dragging 4 Louis Vuitton suitcases behind her. She claimed Brody had not only cheated on her with a bottle service girl, but had also emotionally traumatized her by telling her she was spiritually bankrupt. The entire household went into immediate triage mode. My graduation was instantly eclipsed by the sheer gravitational pull of Savannah's heartbreak. When I called my mother the night before graduation to confirm the logistics for the morning, her voice was strained, laced with that familiar, impatient edge. "Mom, so Thomas is still picking me up at 7 a.m., right? The valedictorian breakfast is at 8:30, and I need to be robed and ready." "Oh, Capri, listen," my mother breathed heavily into the receiver. "It has been an absolute nightmare here. Savannah hasn't eaten solid food in 2 days. She's just lying on the floor of the media room, sobbing. Your father had to cancel his morning meetings." A cold knot formed in my stomach. "Okay, but graduation. Tomorrow. You guys are still coming, right?" "Of course we're coming," she snapped, sounding deeply offended that I would even ask. We can't send Thomas to get you. Savannah might need him to run to the pharmacy for her anxiety medication. Or she might want to go for a drive to clear her head. You can just grab a cab down to the campus, right? We'll meet you in the VIP family seating. Second row. Center. A cab from Washington Heights to the main campus during morning rush hour is going to be incredibly expensive, Mum. And it's supposed to pour rain. Capri, please, my mother sighed. Don't make this difficult. Your sister is going through a severe crisis right now. You're an adult. Figure it out. We will see you at the ceremony. She hung up before I could say another word. I sat on the edge of my thrifted mattress, staring at the wall. I had exactly $14.50 in my checking account until my final barista paycheck cleared the following Tuesday. I had just drained my meager savings to put down the security deposit on a postgrad apartment in Brooklyn. I couldn't afford a cab. I couldn't afford an Uber. I was going to have to take the city bus. Graduation morning arrived, bleak and suffocatingly grey. The forecast had promised showers, but what Manhattan got was a torrential, biblical downpour. I woke up at 5:30 a.m., my stomach churning with a mixture of profound anxiety and deep, lingering resentment. I carefully did my hair and makeup, put on the crisp white dress I had bought on clearance months ago, and carefully folded my Columbia blue graduation gown into a plastic grocery bag to protect it from the weather. At 6:45 a.m., I opened my phone and checked the Uber app just in case a miracle had occurred. The surge pricing was astronomical. A ride down to the Morningside Heights campus was $85. I checked my bank app. Still, $14.50. I took a deep breath, grabbed my umbrella, and walked out into the storm. The walk to the bus stop was only 4 blocks, but the wind was howling through the concrete canyons of the city, turning my umbrella inside out twice. By the time I reached the shelterless stop for the M4 bus, the hem of my white dress was damp, and my cheap, faux leather dress shoes were completely soaked. When the bus finally arrived, it was packed with commuters. It smelled of wet wool, stale coffee, and damp newspapers. I squeezed my way toward the back, clutching the plastic bag, holding my gown to my chest like a shield. I stood there, swaying with the lurching motions of the bus, surrounded by exhausted New Yorkers who had no idea that the soaking wet girl standing next to them was about to give a speech in front of 10,000 people. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text message from my mother. Mum. Honey, Savannah had a terrible night terrors. She is absolutely devastated and begged us not to leave her alone. Your father and I are going to take her to a holistic spa retreat in the Hamptons for the day just to calm her nerves. So sorry, sweetheart. We are so proud of you. Have Thomas pick you up later if he's free. Celebrate with your friends. XOOSO. I stopped breathing. The bus hit a pothole, sending a jolt up my spine. but I barely felt it. I read the text again, and again. They weren't coming. After 4 years of grueling work, after maintaining a 4 gigapascals while working double shifts, after paying my own way, surviving on ramen, and desperately trying to earn just a fraction of the love and attention they poured effortlessly into my sister. They were ditching my college graduation, my valedictory graduation, to take my 24-year-old sister to a spa because a DJ broke up with her. I didn't cry. The anger was too hot, too absolute for tears. It crystallized in my chest, heavy and sharp as a diamond. When I finally arrived at the campus, I ducked into a student center bathroom. I peeled off my wet shoes, dried my hair as best as I could under the hand dryer, and slipped the heavy blue gown over my shoulders. I pinned my cap into place. I looked at myself in the mirror. I was alone. Completely, utterly alone. But I was also free. The desperate, pathetic need for their validation that had driven me for my entire life suddenly evaporated, leaving behind a cold, clinical clarity. The ceremony was a blur of pomp and circumstance. When it was time for my speech, I walked across the massive stage, the lights blinding me against the gloomy backdrop of the sky. I approached the podium and looked out at the sea of graduates and their beaming, crying, cheering families. I looked down at the VIP section. Second row, center, 3 empty folding chairs. I delivered my speech perfectly. I didn't stumble over a single word. I spoke about resilience, about forging your own path when the one laid out for you is broken, about how true strength isn't measured by who supports you, but by what you can build in the empty spaces they leave behind. The crowd roared when I finished. The dean shook my hand enthusiastically. As the ceremony concluded and the thousands of students spilled out onto the main lawns to find their families, I stood under the awning of the library, watching the joyful reunions. My best friend Liam spotted me through the crowd. He ran over, practically tackling me in a hug. "You killed it, Chloe! That speech was insane!" Liam yelled over the noise. His parents, warm and grounded people who owned a bakery in Queens, came up behind him. His mother wrapped me in a tight, flower-scented hug. "Where are your folks, sweetheart?" Liam's dad asked, looking around the crowded plaza. "We got reservations at Carmine's. We wanted to see if you guys wanted to merge tables." I swallowed hard. They couldn't make it. A family emergency. Liam looked at me, his smile faltering. He knew exactly what family emergency meant in the Sterling household. "Capri, I'm so sorry." "It's fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Honestly, I'm just glad it's over." I pulled my phone out of my pocket to check the time. As the screen lit up, an Instagram notification flashed across the lock screen. "Savannah, Sterling just posted a new photo." A morbid curiosity seized me. I tapped the notification. It wasn't a photo of a spa in the Hamptons. It wasn't a picture of her crying in a meditation room. It was a carousel of photos. In the first one, Savannah was wearing a designer sundress, looking radiantly beautiful, posing in a brightly lit, immaculate showroom. Behind her was a car, not just any car, a brand new, customized Bentley Continental GT V8 in a stunning, deep alpine green. In the second photo, she was hugging my father, who was laughing and holding up a set of keys. My mother was standing next to them, holding a glass of champagne. I read the caption. "Daddy and Mummy knew exactly how to cheer up a broken heart. Boys will break your heart, but a V8 engine never will. Beyond blessed to have a family that catches me when I fall. Next chapter starts now. Number Bentley Continental, number new whip, number spoiled, number healing journey." I looked at the location tag. It wasn't the Hamptons. It was Manhattan Motor Cars, a dealership in Chelsea. Less than a 15-minute drive from where I was currently standing, in my damp, cheap shoes. They hadn't left the city. They hadn't gone to a secluded retreat. They had simply decided that buying my sister a $250,000 luxury vehicle to soothe her ego was a more pressing engagement than watching me deliver the valedictorian address at an Ivy League. university. I stood there, the sounds of cheering families and popping champagne corks echoing around me, and I felt something inside of me finally snap, the delicate thread of obligation, of daughterly duty, of hoping that maybe, just maybe, they would change it. Didn't just break. It disintegrated. Capri? Liam asked softly, noticing the blood draining from my face. What is it? I turned my phone around to show him the screen. Liam's jaw dropped. His eyes darted from the photo of the Bentley to my damp dress shoes. Are you kidding me? Liam whispered, his voice shaking with sudden fury. They're in Chelsea? Capri? They lied to you. I know, I said, my voice eerily calm. I know they did. I looked down at the plastic grocery bag I had used to protect my gown, then up at the towering spires of the university I had just conquered entirely on my own. I thought about the $14.50 in my bank account. I thought about the thousands of dollars my father was casually swiping on his black card at this exact moment. Liam, I said, my eyes locking onto his. Do you still have your dad's old beat-up Honda parked on 116th Street? Yeah, he said slowly. Why? Because, I said, reaching up and taking off my graduation cap. I have a family emergency to attend to. The ride from Morningside Heights to Chelsea took exactly 34 minutes, but sitting in the passenger seat of Liam's 2008 Honda Civic, it felt like a lifetime. The rain had slowed to a miserable, heavy drizzle, the windshield wipers squeaking rhythmically against the glass. I stared out the window, watching the blur of Manhattan traffic, my valedictorian medal cold and heavy against my collarbone. Are you sure about this, Capri? Liam asked gently, keeping his eyes on the road. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Liam was the kindest person I knew, an engineering major who built water purification systems for fun. He didn't do drama. He didn't do confrontation. But he was doing this for me. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied, my voice stripped of all its usual hesitation. When we pulled up to Manhattan Motor Cars on 11th Avenue, the contrast was almost comical. Liam parked his dented, faded blue Honda between a matte black Porsche 911 and a pristine Aston Martin. Through the soaring, floor-to-ceiling glass windows of the dealership, the showroom glowed like a jewelry box. I didn't take off my graduation gown. I wanted them to see it. I wanted the Columbia blue fabric and the gold honors cords to be a blaring, neon reminder of exactly what they were missing. I pushed through the heavy glass doors, Liam trailing a few steps behind me like a bodyguard. The air conditioning hit me instantly, smelling of expensive espresso, floor wax, and the distinct, intoxicating scent of premium leather. A polished salesman in a tailored charcoal suit immediately stepped into my path. His name tag read Harrison. He looked at my damp gown, my ruined shoes, and my wind-whipped hair with a mixture of confusion and professional disdain. Miss, I'm sorry, but this is a private showroom floor. Are you lost? The Javits Center is a few blocks over if you're looking for an event. I'm not lost, Harrison, I said, sidestepping him smoothly. I'm looking for my family. I didn't have to look hard. Tucked away in the VIP delivery bay of the showroom sat the Bentley Continental GTV 8. The alpine green paint caught the overhead lights, making it look less like a car and more like a sculpted emerald. And there they were. My father, Richard, was leaning against the hood, holding a crystal flute of champagne, laughing heartily at something the dealership's general manager was saying. My mother, Beatrice, was adjusting the strap of her Prada bag, her perfectly highlighted hair catching the light. And in the driver's seat, the door wide open, sat Savannah. She was adjusting the ambient lighting on the dashboard, her supposed heartbreak completely invisible behind a glowing, triumphant smile. I walked straight toward them. My cheap, waterlogged shoes let out a pathetic squeak against the flawless Italian marble floors. My mother noticed me first. Her champagne flute froze halfway to her lips. The color drained from her face, leaving only the stark lines of her bronzer. Capri? She gasped, her voice shrill and echoing in the cavernous room. My father whipped his head around. His smile vanished instantly, replaced by a dark, thunderous scowl. He instinctively checked his Rolex, as if verifying that I wasn't supposed to exist in this time slot. Savannah poked her head out of the Bentley, her perfectly glossed lips parting in annoyance. "What is she doing here?" she whined, looking at my parents as if a stray dog had just wandered into her bedroom. "Hello, Mom." "Dad," I said, stopping about 5 feet away from the car. I looked at Savannah. "Nice wheels. Is this part of the holistic spa retreat?" "Capri, lower your voice," my father hissed, stepping forward and attempting to grab my arm. I flinched, stepping back. He looked around nervously at the general manager and Harrison, who were now watching the exchange with wide-eyed fascination. "What on earth are you doing here? You're soaking wet. You're embarrassing us." "I'm embarrassing you." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "I just delivered a valedictorian address to 10,000 people, while my parents' seats sat empty. I rode the M4 bus in a thunderstorm because you told me you were dealing with a severe psychiatric emergency. And I find you here, buying a $250,000 car for a 24-year-old who got dumped by a club promoter. Brody is a music producer, Capri." Savannah snapped, stepping out of the car and slamming the heavy door. "And you have no idea the psychological trauma I've endured this week. My aura is completely shattered. Can you please just let me have one good day without making it all about your stupid report cards? It's a college degree." "Savannah," Liam chimed in from behind me, unable to hold his tongue. "From an Ivy League university." My father glared at Liam. "And who the hell is this? Did you bring an audience, Capri? Is this some sort of theatrical stunt?" "He's the only person who actually showed up for me today," I said, my voice rising, the anger finally bleeding into my tone. I looked at my mother. "You lied to me. You sent me a text saying you were holding her hand through night terrors. You were drinking champagne in Chelsea." Beatrice had the absolute audacity to step forward and try to smooth down the damp collar of my graduation gown. "Capri, darling, please don't be dramatic. We were going to come to your dinner tonight. We just—" Savannah needed an immediate pick-me-up. The car was ready today. We couldn't exactly leave it sitting here, could we? Besides, your hair is an absolute disaster right now. Why didn't you take a cab? I stared at her, genuinely marveling at the sheer, impenetrable bubble of her delusion. "Because, Mum, I had $14 in my bank account, because Dad cut me off 4 years ago to build my character." "And look at you," my father interjected, puffing his chest out, trying to reclaim his authority. "You're the valedictorian. My methods worked. You didn't need us to coddle you. You're a strong, independent woman. Savannah is. Savannah requires a different parenting approach." "A Bentley?" I asked, gesturing to the car. "A Bentley is a parenting approach? It's an investment in her mental health," my mother defended shrilly. "Okay, enough," my father commanded, slipping into his ruthless boardroom persona. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a sleek leather checkbook. "Capri, I am proud of you. I really am. But you are causing a scene in a place of business. I am going to write you a check for $10,000. You and your friend here are going to leave. Go have a nice dinner at Le Bernardin like we promised, and we will discuss this like civilized adults tomorrow." He uncapped a Montblanc pen and began to write. He was trying to buy his way out of his own failure as a father. I looked at the check. I looked at the pen. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Harrison the salesman standing near a high-top table, quietly organizing a stack of folders. One of the manila folders had a large, red sticker on it that caught my eye. Urgent. Salvage title transfer. Range Rover. C. O. Richard Sterling. My breath hitched. I took a step closer to the table, my eyes scanning the text visible on the top sheet of paper. Next to the folder was a standard non-disclosure agreement and a business card for a towing company in Greenwich. Suddenly, The pieces of the puzzle didn't just fit together. They slammed into place. I turned away from the check my father was holding out to me. The raw, emotional devastation I had felt earlier was entirely gone, replaced by a cold, calculating adrenaline. 4 years of studying political science and economics, of analyzing power structures and leverage, kicked in. "You didn't buy this car to cheer her up, did you, Dad?" I asked, my voice dropping to a quiet, deadly calm. My father paused, the pen hovering over the check. "What are you talking about?" "The Range Rover," I said, pointing at the folder on Harrison's table. Harrison quickly tried to cover the documents with his clipboard, but it was too late. I had seen it. Salvage title. Towing NDA. Savannah didn't just get dumped by Brody. I turned to my sister. All the color had drained from her perfectly contoured face. She suddenly looked very small and very terrified. "Did he break up with you, Savannah?" I asked, taking a step toward her. "Or did he leave you because you crashed your car? Let me guess. You were out partying in the Hamptons or Greenwich. You got behind the wheel when you shouldn't have, and you totaled the Range Rover. Capri, shut your mouth," my father ordered, his voice suddenly vicious. The polished veneer was entirely gone, but I couldn't be stopped. The truth was unraveling right in front of me. "And Dad," I continued, turning back to him, "you're in the middle of closing that massive commercial merger with Vanguard Holdings. The one you've been working on for 2 years. A DUI scandal. A high-profile crash involving your daughter right before the SEC approves the merger. That would tank the stock price, wouldn't it? It might even kill the we deal." I said, "Shut up!" Richard roared, taking a threatening step toward me. Liam immediately stepped between us, squaring his shoulders against my father. "Don't take another step toward her," Liam warned, his voice remarkably steady for a guy who usually spent his weekends coding in a library. My mother began to cry. A performative, breathless sobbing. "Capri, how could you do this to your sister? She made a mistake. She was in a dark place. The airbags deployed. She could have been killed. So she committed a crime, endangered lives, and destroyed a vehicle," I summarized flatly. "And your response is to secretly tow the car, buy off the towing company with an NDA, and reward her with a Bentley Continental? She needs a safe, reliable vehicle," my mother wailed. "It's a twin-turbo V8, Mum. It goes 200 miles an hour!" I screamed, finally losing my composure. The absurdity of it all was suffocating. "You skipped my college graduation the day I was honored for doing everything right to cover up a felony for the daughter who does everything wrong." The showroom was dead silent. The general manager had discreetly backed away into an office, wanting no part of this. Harrison was staring at his shoes. Savannah was openly crying now, leaning against the green hood of her unearned prize. My father stood frozen, his eyes locked on mine. For the first time in my life, I saw something other than annoyance or indifference in his gaze. I saw fear. He realized that the quiet, studious daughter he had ignored for 2 decades was suddenly holding the detonator to his carefully curated public life. "What do you want, Capri?" my father asked, his voice low and dangerous. "You want the 10 grand? I'll make it 50. I'll pay off your student loans right now. Just name your price and keep this family business within the family." He thought I was negotiating. He thought I was just like him. I looked at the checkbook in his hand. I thought about my $14.50. I thought about my cramped apartment, the years of exhausted tears, the utter lack of a safety net. $50,000 would change my life. Paying off my student loans would set me free. But taking his money meant participating in the rot. It meant signing his invisible NDA. It meant remaining a sterling. "I don't want your money, Dad," I said, my voice eerily calm. I reached up and unclasped the heavy, gold valedictorian medal from around my neck. "You told me you cut me off to build my character. Well, congratulations. The project is complete." I tossed the medal. It clattered harshly against the hood of the brand new Bentley, leaving a tiny, barely perceptible scratch in the alpine green paint before sliding down the metal and landing on the floor at Savannah's feet. Savannah gasped at the scratch. My father stared at the medal on the floor. "Keep the money. Pay for the lawyers you're going to need when the insurance fraud catches up with you," I said. "Because I am done. Do not call me. Do not text me. If you try to contact me, I will forward everything I just figured out to the compliance officers at Vanguard Holdings." "You wouldn't dare," my father whispered, his face pale. "You're bluffing. You don't have proof." "Try me." I smiled. A cold, hard expression that I knew looked exactly like his. "I'm a Sterling, remember? I play to win." I turned my back on them. I grabbed Liam's arm, and together we walked out of the gleaming showroom, leaving my parents and my sister standing in the wreckage of their own making. When we pushed back out through the heavy glass doors, the rain had completely stopped. The clouds had broken, and a bright, piercing shaft of late-morning sunlight was reflecting off the wet pavement of 11th Avenue. I climbed into the passenger seat of the beat-up Honda Civic. The damp fabric of my graduation gown stuck to the seat, and I was exhausted down to my marrow. But as Liam started the engine, the radio kicking on with a burst of static and an old indie rock song, I took a deep breath of the humid city air. For the first time in my life, I felt completely weightless. "So," Liam said, pulling out into traffic, a small, proud smile playing on his lips. "Carmine's for lunch? My parents are definitely going to want to hear about this." "Carmine sounds perfect," I said. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, blocked my mother, blocked my father, and blocked Savannah. I deleted their contact info. Then, I watched the Manhattan skyline roll by, ready to build an empire of my own. Lunch at Carmine's that afternoon was everything my childhood dinners in Greenwich had never been. Loud, chaotic, and fiercely warm. Liam's parents didn't offer me a check to buy my silence. They offered a massive plate of garlic knots and a genuine, tearful toast to my accomplishments. Sitting in that noisy restaurant in my damp graduation dress, a strange, terrifying sensation bloomed in my chest. Peace. That peace became the foundation upon which I built my life. The next 3 years were a masterclass in sheer, unadulterated grit. I moved into a cramped Brooklyn apartment, furnished it with thrift store finds, and threw myself into my career as a junior analyst at a ruthless Manhattan financial consulting firm. I worked 80-hour weeks. I ate at my desk. I never once checked my blocked messages folder, and I never looked back. By 25, I had leaped over colleagues a decade my senior to become one of the youngest vice presidents in the firm's history. I paid off my student loans, moved into a beautiful Dumbo loft, and Liam, who had just sold his water purification startup to a major tech conglomerate, asked me to marry him. Life was brilliant, steady, and entirely mine. Across the river, however, the Sterling Empire was bleeding out. When your father is a high-profile real estate mogul, the headlines inevitably find you. The first crack appeared in the Wall Street Journal, exactly 14 months after the showroom incident. Vanguard Holdings abruptly pulls out of $4 billion merger with Sterling Real Estate. A routine due diligence check had unearthed severe financial irregularities. My father thought a simple NDA and a fat check to a towing company had erased Savannah's mess. He forgot the cardinal rule of New York City. There is always a paper trail. Savannah hadn't just crashed her Range Rover into a tree. In her intoxicated panic, she had sideswiped a parked municipal utility truck, severely injuring the city worker sitting inside, before fleeing the scene. When the worker filed a massive personal injury lawsuit, the police pulled the traffic cam footage. The insurance fraud, the secret towing, the bribery, it all unraveled in spectacular, public fashion. The fallout was catastrophic. My father was indicted on charges of wire fraud, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice. To maintain his lavish lifestyle while fighting a federal indictment, he over-leveraged his company's assets. When the market dipped, his creditors called in their loans. The Sterling family went from Architectural Digest spreads to the front page of the New York Post. House of Cards. Greenwich Golden Girls DUI brings down Daddy's empire. I watched it happen from a safe, insulated distance. I felt no joy in their downfall, but I also felt absolutely zero pity. It was simply the inescapable mathematics of their own arrogance. Then came a rainy Tuesday afternoon in November. I had just finished a brutal board meeting and was walking through the glass-walled lobby of my firm's building when I heard my name. Sitting on a sleek leather bench was my mother, Beatrice. The flawless socialite was gone. Her designer roots were overgrown, showing stark grey. She wore a dated trench coat, clutching a scuffed Prada bag. She looked frail and utterly defeated. My assistant discreetly stepped away. "I know you blocked us, Capri," Beatrice said, standing up with trembling hands. "I didn't know where else to go. I've been waiting for 3 hours. What do you want?" I asked, checking my watch. Real, desperate tears welled in her eyes, not her usual performative weapon, but the tears of a woman out of lifelines. "It's gone. Everything. The Greenwich house is in foreclosure. The lawyers took the liquid cash. They're talking about prison time for your father. The bank repossessed the Bentley 6 months ago. Savannah is living in our guest bedroom, refusing to get out of bed." I stared at her, my face a mask of polite indifference. "That sounds stressful, but it doesn't explain why you are here." "We need you," she pleaded, reaching for my hand. I smoothly tucked it into my pocket. "You're a vice president. You understand finance. We need a loan just to keep the house. And your father's defense attorney says a character witness from his successful daughter would play incredibly well with the jury. It would show he was a good family man." I let out a laugh of pure, unadulterated disbelief. "You want me to commit perjury to save a man who wouldn't pay for a cab to my college graduation?" I asked softly. "You want me to leverage the career I built from nothing to bail out the sister you bought a Bentley for?" "We are your family," Beatrice cried, her voice echoing. A security guard looked over, but I gave him a subtle wave to stand down. "You have money now. You have power." "I do," I agreed calmly. "And I got it by realizing that you and Dad were never my family. You were just my landlords." Beatrice flinched as if struck. "You told me for 22 years that abandoning me built my character," I continued, my voice carrying the weight of all the years I spent feeling invisible. "Well, Mom, you and Savannah are looking a little soft these days. Capri, please." "No." I cut her off. "No money. No character witness. No relationship. You invested everything into Savannah's delusions and Dad's ego. Now, you get to sit back and collect the dividends." I turned on my heel and walked toward the private elevators. I could hear her broken sobbing behind me. But today, it was just background noise. Back in my corner office, I looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the glittering expanse of Manhattan. My phone buzzed. It was Liam. "Reservations at Carmine's at 7 to celebrate your promotion. My parents are bringing champagne. See you at home. I love you." I smiled, typing back a quick, "I love you too." The Sterling Empire had fallen, buried under the weight of its own lies. But mine was just getting started. Blood does not forge a family. Respect and shared burdens do. While my parents manufactured crises to coddle a golden child, they inadvertently handed me the blueprint for absolute independence. I didn't just survive their neglect. I weaponized it to build a life they could never buy. Today, my wealth is measured in peace, surrounded by people who celebrate my victories rather than sabotaging them for their own convenience.